Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Lieutenant Jeff Cheshire from the Speedway Fire Department. You're listening to the SA Matters radio show with Dr. Rich Gasaway. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see bad things coming and time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello, and welcome to episode 69 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple, to help you see the bad things coming and time to avoid bad outcomes. If you've experienced or witnessed a near miss and would like to have a platform to share your lessons learned with others, please contact me by visiting the SAMatters.com website and clicking on the Contact Us link on the top of the homepage. Have you ever thought about this? Your lessons learned from a close call could save someone else's life? Think about that for a moment. And if you're interested in sharing your experience, contact me. I want to give a little shout out to Jeff Cheshire, Lieutenant from the Speedway Fire Department, who did the introduction to this episode. Jeff was interviewed as a close call survivor back in episode 57, and I really appreciate the time that you gave, Jeff, and the lessons that you shared with others. Jeff was also a student in my Company Officer Development Institute program in Crawfordsville, Indiana last week. Hey, Jeff, thanks for the Wee Mac Ale. It tasted great sitting around my campfire when I got home Saturday. I'm coming to you today from McCall, Idaho, where I'm in town doing some research on wildland firefighter situational awareness and decision-making. Thank you to Dave Lapachelle and the United States Forest Service and the McCall Smoke Jumpers for the hospitality. I'm not sure what I'm getting myself into here. Today was dedicated to training the novice wildland firefighter, that would be me, on the basics. Tomorrow is when the real learning begins. As you know, this has been an epic season for wildland fires, and I bow in reverence to the men and women on the front line dedicating themselves to the mission of protecting lives and property. In case you missed last week's episode, I was in Indiana for 2 weeks delivering 2 full-week Company Officer Development Institute programs, one hosted by the Gary Fire Department and one hosted by the Crawfordsville Fire Department. The Crawfordsville program was special because it was the 20th offering of the week-long Company Officer Development Institute. I'm so honored for these opportunities and for the departments who have invited me back over and over again to help develop their next generation leaders. If you're a company officer, an aspiring company officer, or chief officer wondering if this program might be right for your department, the best way I can explain what I do in the full week is basically this: no BS, no theory, and get this, no PowerPoint. That's right, no PowerPoint. We focus on the skills to help company officers be successful and to help keep problems out of the chief's office, teaching problem prevention and problem resolution at the company level. It's the officer development program I wish I would have had when I was vaulted into my company officer position. I wasn't ready, so I did the best that I knew how. In the process, I created a lot of problems, and I made a lot of existing problems worse. It was a disaster. Did I learn? Oh, yeah, I learned. But oh, at what a cost. I destroyed friendships and alienated myself from others, and didn't really even need to happen that way. If only I'd been taught the skills to succeed before I needed them. What a concept, huh? If you're interested in hosting a company officer development program, and they can range anywhere from 1 day to a full week. Head over to the samatters.com website and click on the Contact Me link. Okay, enough ranting about leadership. It's time to introduce this week's show. While it is important to train in ways that reinforce best practices and successful outcomes, there is something to be said for training that results in failure. Let's explore why and how you would ever want to train a responder through failure. You've heard the saying that a person can learn more from the mistakes they've made than the things that they've done right. I certainly know that's true in my life. It's true in life, and it's true in firefighting. But is there a place and a time to allow firefighters to fail? This episode is dedicated to explaining how to build failure into your training evolutions. It's important that if we're going to train firefighters through failure, that we don't do it when they're new firefighters. Remember, none of us want to fail. None of us want to be seen as a failure. None of us want to be embarrassed by the consequences and the ridicule that come along with being a failure. When a firefighter is new and learning their craft, the worst thing we can do is let them fail. On purpose, let them fail. Don't do that. Catch them short of failure, correct the action, and teach them the right way to find success. And then teach them that way over and over and over again. And let them practice in repetition the development of successful outcomes. This will build their confidence as a new firefighter. As a firefighter gains experience on the training ground or on the fire ground, then hopefully the best practices that they learned are reinforced with successful outcomes as well. But at some point, a firefighter develops enough experience that they become expert at their trade. They know what to do, when to do it, why to do it, and how to do it. At that point, perhaps, it's time to introduce failure to advance the experienced firefighter or the experienced officer's skill set. Let me give it to you in the way of an analogy. If when you get ready to go to work in the morning, you go the same way over and over again, you develop the habit and the repetition of driving to work the same way. It becomes routine, in fact, almost automatic, perhaps even to the point where you really don't have to think a whole lot about it. But then the day comes when the road is closed. Maybe it's closed for construction, maybe it's closed for an accident or a water main break, but for whatever reason, you're no longer able to successfully go down the road you have gone down forever. Now, you have to find a new way to get to work. Chances are the first time you do this, unless you know the area well and know the roads well, it's going to be a slow process of trial and error. You might turn down a few side streets and end up in a cul-de-sac or a dead end, having to come out and find a different way to go. Maybe you come along a couple of one-way streets. Maybe you take a street that you think is going to come out on the other end of the construction of the accident and find out that it doesn't, and then you have to turn around and try another route and another way and another way, and eventually you get to work. That process of learning is slow and arduous and maybe even frustrating, but eventually you get there. Maybe late, but you do show up. Congratulations! You've just learned a new way to get to work. It may not be a way that you ever need to use again, but in the event that you do, you can now be a resilient problem solver. You have found an alternate way to the successful outcome. Your normal route failed, so what you had to do was learn a new route, and you have learned. The same thing happens inside the brain. As we learn things for the first time, we develop a pathway, a roadway, a route to knowledge where the information about how to do that, whatever that is, successfully starts to have the road building project. The more you practice in repetition and in realistic ways, the more you build your confidence and the stronger the road becomes. This is good because then you can travel down that road with confidence and ease very quickly to the destination of knowledge, cognitive knowledge, and kinesthetic muscle movement knowledge that can help you perform best practices flawlessly and effortlessly. But at some point, your best practice may not work. The problem you're trying to solve using the way that you have trained to always do it may not work. It's the equivalent of the road being blocked for construction. Now you have to find a new way to solve the problem. This new way to solve the problem basically wires a new pathway to the information, to new information, as you learn how to resiliently solve that problem. It's kind of like making your way through the neighborhood, trying to find the way around when the road was closed. Your brain literally rewires itself to an alternate solution. Now, the chances of the alternate solution being housed in the same place as the primary solution is relatively remote. But basically, what you have now is a split roadway, two ways to two destinations, both containing solutions to the problem. When you have an expert who's developed the knowledge of expertise, they've developed that unconscious competency, the ability to perform high-level thinking and action without a lot of thought. This person has a strong and robust roadway that allows them to access the information of best practices with ease. Once a person has developed the skill to that level, it is time to start challenging them with failure. Let me explain. Even the experienced person, and perhaps even more so, the experienced person is not going to want to be seen as a failure. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be ridiculed. They don't want to be called out. So, when you're going to teach them using failure, you tell them in advance that that's exactly what this exercise that you're going to perform is going to be about. You're going to tell them with intentionality in advance that what they're going to try, their standard best practice, isn't going to work. And you tell them that. You just say, whatever you're going to try, I'm going to tell you now, it simply isn't going to work. I don't want you to get mad. I don't want you to be embarrassed. No one is going to ridicule you. But what I want you to do is essentially when you come up to the roadblock en route to your best practice solution, I want you to pause and think about the alternate route. What are the different things that you can do to try to get to whatever the outcome is that you would call success? And tell them that you expect this process to be much slower. You might expect them to fumble and juggle their thoughts and actions some because they're doing things that they've never done before, kind of like the person going down the side streets that they've never gone down before. They might come to a dead end and say, "Oh, this didn't work." So might this experienced firefighter officer might come to a dead end of the process and say, "Well, that didn't work." So, okay, back up, turn around, start over until you find a way to solve the problem. As they work at it and find an alternate solution to the problem, they are learning. They are learning from their failure. But they're learning from their failure with a great deal of conscious intentionality. They know in advance, coming into the evolution, that what they're about to try will not work. Let me give you an example of an anecdote that was shared with me by an attendee of a program when I was talking about using failure to train firefighters. His department was doing some evolutions on rapid intervention. So what they were doing is they were taking some firefighters, sending them inside of a building, and I don't remember if it was a burned building or an acquired structure, but they were sending them inside, sending them to a certain location, and having them practice calling the Mayday. When they called the Mayday, they did a lunar type report where they, gave their particulars of their crews and their location and what their needs were, and then the rapid intervention team would be activated. So the firefighters were in the building at the designated location, called out their Mayday, the rapid intervention team activated, went in, located them. Sometimes they went in the front door, sometimes they went in the back door, sometimes they went in a window, but they located them and assisted them coming out. They practiced this over and over and over again over the course of many months, if maybe even not a year, until they got good at it. And then the person who was telling me this story said they wanted to test the quality of their training. So here's the scenario that he described. They were at the training ground again sometime later. These people had developed their knowledge and their experience, and they sent the firefighting crew in who called the Mayday and said they were on the second floor on the BC corner of the dwelling. And then the rapid intervention team went to the second floor, went to the BC corner, and the firefighting crew that called the Mayday was not there. In confusion, maybe even a little bit of frustration, the rapid intervention team came back out of the building, went back to command, and said the crew that called the Mayday wasn't where they were supposed to be. And command said, well, what do you mean by that? And they said, well, they said they were on the BC corner, and we went to the BC corner, and they're not there. And we don't know where they're at, and so we're back in staging. So essentially, they were so used to having the Mayday crew call the Mayday, and then the RIT team activate and go to where the team who called the Mayday said they were at, and finding them and extricating them out, that they had overlooked the possibility that when somebody calls a Mayday, they wouldn't be where they say they are. And you can imagine in the haste and anxiousness of calling a Mayday, coupled with perhaps high heat and low visibility and stress and all the potential consequence, a person who calls a Mayday might confuse where they are and call it out to be someplace different than where they really are. So that unto itself was realistic, but there was failure built into this scenario. And the failure was intended to have the RIT team then resiliently try to locate the troubled firefighters, which they did not do. They became confused and frustrated and exited the structure and reported back to their staged area and asked command for further directions. Now, this just being one example of one department building failure into their evolutions. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that whatever you develop as your best practice skill sets, once you get firefighters and officers to the expert level, and you'll know it because they'll be able to do their jobs with so much automaticity, so by habit, that they're not even having to give a lot of thought about it. They're just able to do it without much thought. And when they get to that level of skill, then it's time to challenge them to learn from failure. Remember, we learn more from our mistakes than the things we do right. Once they get to the expert level, fully disclose to them that it is time to take their training to a new level of development, and disclose to them that what they do as their best practice isn't going to work. Don't become angry. Don't become frustrated or embarrassed. It's all part of developing them to be resilient problem solvers. Before I close out today's episode, I want to take a moment to thank the departments and organizations that have hosted recent Situational Awareness Matters tour stops. Your efforts to bring this valuable and powerful training on situational awareness and high-risk, high-consequence decision-making to your members and others in your region are greatly appreciated. The West Point Military Academy in West Point, New York, the Aberdeen Proving Ground Military Facility in Aberdeen, Maryland, the Gary, Indiana Fire Department. In addition to doing the company officer program, I also did a situational awareness program for Gary. The Wadesville, Indiana Fire Department, the Crawfordsville, Indiana Fire Department. Again, while I was there doing company officer, we did a situational awareness program for them as well. If you're interested in attending an upcoming program, on August 26th to 28th, I'll be doing 4 programs for Fire Rescue International in Atlanta, Georgia. On September 10th, I will be at the National Fire Academy's Executive Fire Officer Graduate Symposium doing a Chuck Chat, which is a TEDx-inspired type presentation, 20-minute presentation on creating the thinking firefighter. On September 12th, I'll be in Plainfield, Michigan. September 14th, Bloomfield Township, Michigan. September 23rd, I will be giving the closing keynote at the Fire Rescue Canada Conference, the conference for the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs in Victoria, British Columbia. September 26th, I'll be in Delran, New Jersey. And September 28th, giving a full-day presentation at the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst, Ontario. If you're interested in attending an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop, head over to the SA Matters website and click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage labeled Upcoming Event Schedule. Here's hoping there'll be a tour stop near you and we'll get a chance to meet up. If you're interested in adding your department or your association to the lineup of tour stops, contact me through the website and we'll get something set up for you. If you're not a member of the SA Matters community of learners yet, please consider joining. There are more than 5,000 members connected here on SA Matters, sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to train members to be critical thinkers and resilient problem solvers. Membership is free, and when you sign up, you'll get a free special report that I've created for the new members called 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. If you're not a member yet, head over to the SA Matters website and click on the red box on the right side of the homepage that says Free Membership. As a reminder, every episode of the SA Matters radio show has a corresponding show notes page on the samatters.com website. All the most recent episodes scroll on the homepage, but for the older episodes, just go to samatters.com / and then enter the episode number, which is always mentioned at the start of the show. So, for example, if you want to listen to that show that I recorded with Jeff Cheshire, which is number 57, you would go to www.samatters.com / 57, and that'll take you to the page that contains the link to the episode. The show notes page will also contain additional information and resources about the episode, and depending on who the guest is and what they provide, it may also have incident pictures, video and audio, and contact information for our guest. On the show notes page, you can also ask me questions and leave your feedback about the episode. If you're not connected with me on social media yet, consider joining up with me on Twitter, @RichGasaway, or @SAMatters on Twitter. The SA Matters Twitter community is nearly 16,000 followers strong, and for that I thank you all for supporting my mission there. You can also get connected with me on Facebook by liking the SA Matters page, and on LinkedIn. And you can find me by searching Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn. Thanks to everyone who's connected with me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Also, I really enjoy sharing the SA Matters content with you there. If you like the show, please consider going to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and subscribing to the show. Just search for SA Matters Radio. That's SA Matters Radio on iTunes or Stitcher. Please consider leaving some feedback for me there as well. And if you like the show, I'd really appreciate it if you'd give it a 5-star review. Not only does that motivate me to work harder for you, but it will also help others to find the show. Well, that's it. Episode 69 is complete. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Midwest Fire. Hey, if you're in the market for a fire truck, check out Midwest Fire. They build some awesome fire trucks. And I'm not just saying that because they're my sponsor. Before I signed up with them to be my sponsor, I went and toured their facility and met their employees and watched how they built fire trucks. I'm impressed. They build some quality fire apparatus. Check them out at MidwestFire.com. Thanks to all of our live event hosts that I mentioned before, and thank you to our listeners for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.